Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of Bud Talks Bills. I am your host, Bud. I am super excited to get this thing going. So, with that, let's talk some Bills. All right, guys, let's get this thing going with a little bit of introduction here. My name is Bud. I've been a Bills fan my entire life, kind of a way of life, if you will. Honestly, all started with my great uncle, Uncle John. We called him. He had season tickets back in the '80s. Started taking my dad. My dad started taking me. It's been a generational thing ever since. Um, really has defined kind of who I am. I feel like a lot of Bills fans, Bills Mafia can relate to that. Um, just a Bills fan that lives, breathes, bleeds Bills blue, and I'll talk Bills to anyone that'll listen. Kind of hence Bud Talks Bills. Um, Played college football at St. John Fisher. Didn't just go there for the Bills. I'll say that after the fact. But watching football after playing at a certain level is different. You kind of have to let go of some of that control when you're playing and you're out there and you're a part of a team that's working, throughout the week. It's actually easier to be calm and relaxed and focused as a fan. You're kind of hands off, and you're not in team meetings, and you're not in on the practice field throughout the week. So when they roll out there on Sundays, you're kind of just along for the ride, and that has been difficult, a difficult kind of transition for me. I'm sure with a lot of other fans of any team that has played college football or football at any level. Started listening to Locked On Bills with Joe Marino, and it really made me a better fan. Being able to listen to somebody talk about what went right, what went wrong, the fact that it wasn't all good, it wasn't all bad, regardless of what happened, and not riding that roller coaster, I really think made me a better fan. There's a lot of guys in the Bills content creation world. Some of the guys that I follow and watch. I'm an everydayer with Locked On and Joe Marino. Never miss an episode. The guys that cover one: Eric Turner, Greg Tomset, Anthony Prohaska, Aaron Quinn. Bills fans are lucky to have content creators like that, and I think that there's a large group of fans that maybe take for granted how much access we have to guys that can break down film and break down salary caps better than a lot of GMs across the league. What I wanted to do by starting this is really just create and connect, an area with Bills fans where it can just feel like, hey, we're just a couple of Bills fans sitting down talking about our team. In no way am I an expert about the game, but I love learning football. I love watching football. I love talking football. I'll talk about the Bills, to anyone that'll listen, willingly or unwillingly, honestly. So that's kind of where this podcast is hopefully going to go, is just connecting Bills fans that want to talk about their team, want to talk about certain plays or players, learn football, and just a safe space for Bills fans to talk. Another person, without moving on too fast. My brother does a podcast for the Giants. If there's any Giants fans out there, go follow the Giants Report. My brother, big help with this. Seeing him do something like this is definitely motivated me, and seeing how much fun he has with this, and the people that he gets to interact with on a daily basis. It's something I'm looking forward to, maybe having here in the Bills community. So with that, let's get right into the end of the season. Another season, kind of ending in the same kind of heartbreak. Feels like we just invent new ways, to lose games, and you think about all these all-time games, all-time plays throughout the history of the NFL, and the Bills are involved in a lot of them. They are unfortunately always on the wrong side of that. Starting with wide right and the 13 seconds, and the Music City forward pass, we'll call it. Right down to was it a catch or an interception? This year, and it never gets any easier. It 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 really doesn't. Throughout the season, there might have been things that should have been an indicator of where this team was going. Injuries killed us. Some holes in the roster, maybe some depth pieces that we didn't have. I kind of likened it to the pain that you get, maybe in your side that, ooh, I should be concerned about that, but I've felt this before, so I'm not going to panic right away. That was really how I started feeling after that Patriots loss week 5. We'll get into that in later in the episode, or maybe down the road a little bit. But just a heartbreaking season, and you can only go so far doing the same things. And it always felt like, since that 2020 season, where, this whole thing kind of got kickstarted, this little run that we've had, it always felt like we were just doing little tweaks here and there, in the off seasons, keep this structure, sign this guy, add this depth piece, just try to tweak it a little bit. Last year, there was a lot of turnover with guys that, it was really hard to watch leave. Thought that was kind of going to be the roster reset. And then we get into this year, and it just felt like there was still so many holes when this should have been, pardon me, this should have been the year where we kind of rebounded, from that roster turnover. That kind of points the finger, to the personnel side. So when a change is made, we talk about, you can only do the same thing over and over and over again. And, you're just making tweaks here and here. Eventually, ownership had enough, and hey, we're going to make some swift changes. I think a lot of Bills fans were initially upset, with the fact that it was McDermott, purely because of the timing and the way it was done, in my opinion. If McDermott was fired after 13 seconds, I don't think any Bills fans really saying anything. I think if it was, after the Bengals loss, the divisional round loss where we just got absolutely dominated, I don't think anyone's saying anything. I think the irony comes from the fact that it might have been Coach McDermott's best, full season, kind of patchworking, injuries, roster holes. A lot of things went into it this year. Kind of going back to it, one of those things, he's kind of working around is the fact that, hey, somebody else in the AFC actually decided to play football this year. I think that was kind of that I'll say opinion that maybe this was the wrong time to fire him, when it felt like maybe the finger should have been pointed at Bean. And we'll never know how much input Coach McDermott had on personnel, or, we can talk all day long about, well, he wanted this archetype at this position and he influenced this, or even down to, well, he was influencing how we were calling plays, offense and so on. I think that after the initial sting kind of subsided, I settled in on maybe this was the move, to make. And we'll never know. We can debate it until we're blue in the face right now. The fact of the matter is, we're going to have to wait at least a year to see if this was the right move. Um, but regardless, it's all too similar with how the season ended. And then to hear the owner talk about how it was a championship caliber roster and it was the coaching, that had been letting us down. To hire and promote somebody from that coaching staff, I think raised even more questions. And like I said, it's going to take at least a year. We can, no one knows who's right now. I know that the excitement should be there for somebody like Joe Brady, and that's kind of where I'm going to go to now. Is regardless of who the coach is, regardless of what decision I would have made regarding Coach McDermott, who I would have hired, over Brady, or if Brady was the right guy. September 10th rolls around, the season starts, 2026. I'm going to be right there in my seats or at the TV, probably fully confident that we're about to win the Super Bowl. So we might as well just shift that focus and try to figure out and come to terms with the fact that this is the right move. Joe Brady led an offense in back-to-back years with an MVP quarterback and an NFL rushing leader. You look at his resume in totality, and I think that if he wasn't wearing a Bills logo on his shirt last year, Bills fans are probably pretty happy about this hire. There's probably some residue from the fact that he was on the same coaching staff that just got fired, that maybe that's kind of holding some Bills fans. When I say some, I mean probably a majority of Bills fans from being too excited about this. Yeah, there was parts where the offense looked stagnant last year. I won't even go as far to say that there might have been some times where I know a lot of Bills fans were kind of calling for his job this year as offensive coordinator, let alone getting promoted to head coach. How much of that was injury, personnel? We could not keep receivers healthy. It was a revolving door at the receiver position. The defense, struggled in large parts of the season, especially against the run. There was a lot of factors that go into, not just the season, but individual games, and how a game plays out. So, I'm going to choose voluntarily to go with the excitement of Joe Brady based on that resume. If he was not wearing a Bills logo last year, I think looks pretty good on paper. I think a lot of Bills fans, if he was the offensive coordinator for Green Bay last year, somebody else, and we get an offensive coordinator that, in back-to-back seasons coached an MVP quarterback and an NFL's leading rusher, I think most of us would be excited about that. The other thing is I personally don't believe that this was the easy hire that a lot of Bills fans think it was, with just sticking with Joe Brady. And I get the continuity argument. He's somebody that was on the staff. He's been in the building. People kind of know who he is. With the comments from ownership that it was a coaching issue the last couple of years, and especially this past year, I think that they knew promoting somebody from that coaching staff was not going to go over well with the fan base. And Bean mentioned it multiple times. He knows if this doesn't work out, he's packing his bags just like Coach McDermott was. They interviewed 9 guys, I believe, over the course of a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. There was a lot of guys in on those interviews. I know there was some contention of whether Josh Allen should have been in there. I am choosing, like I said, voluntarily to believe that Brandon Bean and the entire group that was putting these interviews together did their due diligence, went through every candidate knowing that their jobs are on the line. The NFL, not just on the field, but in the locker rooms, in the front office, in the coaching meetings, it's an alpha world. There's a level of narcissism you have to have. I think that is egotistical, narcissistic. I'm the smartest guy in the room. That these guys are, including Brandon Beane. I think that he is well aware this hire better hit or he's out the door. And I know that the contract was for 5 years, but I think we all know that Beane and Brady are not getting 5 years to figure this out. This is probably a 2-year. They probably got 2 years to get this team at least to a Super Bowl. Some of the things to be excited about with this hire is, there is some continuity on offense. Some of the coaches are returning. Kelly Skipper at running back, Rob Boris at tight end. I think we can go. It goes without saying, those were probably, outside of Josh Allen, the two best positional groups that we've had over the last couple of years on offense. Bringing them back, adding Pete Carmichael at offensive coordinator, somebody who is very used to the unique offensive non-play caller role, and doing it not only with a Hall of Fame quarterback or a Hall of Fame head coach, but a Hall of Fame head coach that basically was the mentor for our new head coach in Joe Brady. I don't think that should be understated at all. He's somebody that's going to be a voice for Coach Brady when he can't be in the room, taking on new roles with the whole team. There is a lot of continuity on the offensive side of the ball with a lot of, people returning. Hopefully there's, a remodel done in the wide receiver room. I know that there's some guys on the offensive line that, we might be kind of fighting to keep, but with the same offensive mind kind of leading that direction, I think that's only a good thing, especially when we think back to all of these playoff failures that we have. A lot of it can be pointed, and most of it is pointed at the defense. I know, you can look up any statistic and analytic, measure from the Bills defense in the regular season to the Bills defense in the playoffs over the last 6 years. And it's really not close. And for a defensive head coach, it's kind of a major indictment on McDermott. And before I go too far into, what struggles the defense had in the playoffs, I think that we'd be remiss without focusing, or at least giving some attention to what Sean McDermott did for this franchise. Coming in 2017, second hire for new ownership, was not really kind of a major sought after coaching candidate, and just came in and completely stabilized an unstable franchise. You're talking about a 17-year playoff drought, and he came in first year, needed some help, but first year playoffs with Tyrod Taylor leading, joins forces with Brandon Beane. You get the quarterback, and the next thing you know, we're going on a run where, we're arguably one of, the best team in football without a ring over the last 6 years. I don't want to go on without at least acknowledging what Coach McDermott did for this franchise, where he brought us from, and the stability and culture that he gave the Buffalo Bills organization. That said, the defense really, really was a liability in the playoffs. And that goes through a couple different defensive coordinators. It goes through a couple different offensive coordinators. It just felt like the common denominator was the Bills playing passive defense in the biggest moments. Something Bills fans screaming at their TV, being in the stands for every home game, for the last, I don't even know how long, getting off the field on third down. Getting off the field on third down, it was almost like whether it was 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 21, we're all holding our breath. It was kind of a flip of the coin. Are we gonna give up a 25-yard screenplay on 3rd and 22, or is it going to be 3rd and 17 and we're going to get a defensive holding call and give them a first down, or is it going to be 3rd and 1 and we just get bullied up the middle? It just always felt like on 3rd down we could never get off the field, and obviously that's a bit of an exaggeration, but that is almost a microcosm of what a Sean McDermott defense kind of evolved into over the last 6 years, and that is they just could not make the play they needed when they needed it. I go to the Denver game, and everyone talks about Brandon Cooks. Was it a catch? Was it an interception? Did he have possession? Josh Allen misses Dawson Knox over the middle there, potential game winner. The James Cook fumble, the Josh Allen for 4 turnovers. There's a play late in that game, 3rd and 11. Buffalo's getting pressure on Bo Nix the entire game, moving him off his spot, and he just looked like 2 different quarterbacks. You let him set his feet in the pocket, he was hitting guys. He was finding spots and zones. You put pressure on him, you make him move that pocket a little bit, and he looked like a different guy. There was a point late in that game, I forget the exact time, but it was 3rd and 11. I think they had the ball right around their own 40. We got 2 linebackers, Milano and Shaq Thompson, lined up, mugging the A-gap. And I remember thinking to myself, don't bail. Don't drop. Put the pressure on them. Keep it there. We're up by, 3 points. They're going in to try to kick a field goal to tie the game. And they snapped the ball, and we got 2 linebackers bail. And my stomach, before the play even happened, I just kind of went, oh, no, that's not good. Not good. And he, of course, hits Cortland Sutton for 15 yards, first down. Next thing you know, they're going in to tie the game. It's plays like that. Once, twice. It's been a repeated thing in the Sean McDermott era, especially in the playoffs, where it just feels like these big moments, they become passive, never making the play that they need when they need it. You hear, different reports of, Coach McDermott was tight, and in these big moments he became tight. The players kind of played, tight. Whether that's true or not, we're not in meeting rooms. I'm not going to try to speculate on that. Watching the games with my eyes, watching, Eric Turner in the film room, listening to Joe Marino, it's kind of hard to not see this defense just fail to make any sort of play when the team needs it. So with that turnover, you're kind of keeping, at the coaching position, with that coaching change, you're in a way pointing a pretty big finger at the guy that really turned your franchise around and gave it that stability, that I talked about. But is it needed? And I think that once everything kind of subsided, I think it was a move, that was needed. I wish that they went about it with a little more respect, coming from ownership. As I said, this is somebody that completely turned around a franchise that was, middling at best. And the timing of it just felt a little off. Combine that with promoting somebody from a coaching staff that you kind of just trashed, and Bills fans are probably not going to be too thrilled about it. But again, I'm hoping that once everything kind of subsides, we look at the resume of Joe Brady. We look what he's done with this offense, the connection. The players obviously love him. You watch that press conference, and the first thing that I said, a lot of people talked about the him being genuine and the connection to Buffalo. I think you saw more real interaction about a coach to his players in that 57-minute press conference than you did, the last couple of years with Coach McDermott. I think that is something that we should be excited for. I think that change is always scary. But what we've been doing the last, like I said, 5-6 years, these little tweaks here, little tweaks there, they haven't been working. And I know that there's a 17-year drought that hangs like a black cloud over almost all of Bills Mafia. Um, Born in '93, actually. I haven't done the exact math on it, but I'm pretty sure I was born about 5 months after the last Super Bowl. First memory, like I said, was the Music City Miracle. Watching it with my dad as as a little 6, 7 year old. I know the drought. I know that feeling. I lived it all too much, growing up, and I get the fear of that and going back to it, and the fear of a coaching change when you had such stability. But what is success? Like Terry Pagula said, what is success? Is success competing for an AFC East championship every year, maybe winning a playoff game, and hey, we got a puncher's chance at a Super Bowl every single year? Or is it making that move that might actually win a Super Bowl? And I'm hoping that a lot of Bills fans can, find the excitement, that I have. I know that I don't have too many Bills fans around me. I'm kind of, by myself out here, at least where I'm at locally. I got there pretty quick, but I think it was just the realization of I'm going to support him either way. When push comes to shove this September 2026, I'm going to be sitting in that new stadium at the home opener, my season tickets, thinking we are going to win the Super Bowl. So I better try to figure out why they did what they did and get on board with it, because there's really nothing we can do, to bring Coach McDermott back. We will wrap this first episode up with that. I appreciate everyone that listened. This is the first episode. I really hope to put out some more content weekly. Life's pretty busy, but I'm excited to do this. Hopefully, it can catch on, and anybody that wants to interact or just talk some Bills, I'm always ready and willing to talk Bills. My Twitter is _I am Bud _ or at Bud Talks Bills. Just let me know. Hopefully we can kind of get something going here, and I look forward to talking to you guys next time. Thank you, and go Bills.